Do it.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your pal NOMZ here, and today we're going to go over some news that's recently hit the internet that people have asked for my opinion on. And it would seem that George Lucas has finally broke his silence and gone into a bit more depth as to what his plans for the original Star Wars sequel trilogy was going to be. Now, he's given us a few details in the past. He said it was, of course, going to focus on the adventures of Han, Luke, and Leia post Return of the Jedi. And he also said that it was going to go further into the microbiology intricacies of the Force, which I personally found very interesting. He's also mentioned these creatures called the wills that sort of govern the Force, and we're like all cars that the Force drives around in. That's the analogy he used anyway. So I was very curious to see what he's going to do. Sadly, that's never going to happen, as we all know, because of events that took place 8 years ago that it was just a bad time. Let's not go into it. But in a recent interview, George Lucas spoke out about his sequel trilogy plans, and I'm just going to go through this article real quick, and then we'll discuss it, okay? So, it says, George Lucas finally reveals his ideas for a Star Wars sequel trilogy and why he never made it. Okay, well, and he says in the subheading here, Darth Maul was the big bad and Leia became the Supreme Chancellor in the Star Wars trilogy that never was. It's done by a guy called Bradley Russell. Anyway, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker may have brought the sequel trilogy to a close, but we can't shake the gnawing feeling about how George Lucas would have ended the Skywalker saga. Can we be perfectly honest here? It ended in Return of the Jedi. I hate when they say, Rise of Skywalker ended the Skywalker saga. No, it did not. It was a bastardized, disgusting abortion of a fanfiction done by a corporate entity that had nothing to do with the Skywalker saga. Anyway, thanks to Tastian's The Star Wars Archives, 1999 to 2005, an incredible new coffee table book examining the complete story of the prequels, we now have an answer of sorts, and why the creator of Star Wars never brought his own sequel trilogy to the big screen. Oh really? The Star Wars Archives, the complete story of the prequels, eh? I might have to buy that book. Anyway, while this book was being made, apparently George Lucas gave some insight into how the sequel trilogy would go. And he goes on to say, the movies are about Leia, I mean, who else is going to be the leader, is trying to rebuild the Republic. Luke, on the other hand, is trying to restart the Jedi, Lucas revealed. But who would they be up against? After the fall of the Empire, there was a power vacuum, eventually filled in during episodes 7 to 9 by the trilogy's main villain, a resurrected Darth Maul. But he wouldn't be alone. Darth Maul trained a girl, Darth Talon, who was in the comic books as his apprentice. She was the new Darth Vader, and most of the action was with her. So these were the two main villains of the trilogy, Lucas said. It all fell apart, however, due to an ambitious time frame and Lucas's desire to spend time elsewhere. At that time, I was starting the next trilogy, Lucas went on to say. I talked to the actors, and I was starting to gear up. I was also about to have a daughter. It takes 10 years to make a trilogy. I'd still be working on episode 9. And I think he's referring to the current year when he said that. Finally, I decided I'd rather raise my daughter and enjoy life for a while. Okay, and that's essentially the end of the article right there. Now, okay, so let's break this down. So he says the movies are about Leia, and I've heard people try to spin this as, I don't know if the words came from Lucas's mouth or if it came from the media's mouth, but apparently Leia would have been the new quote-unquote chosen one. If that is what Lucas was intending, to turn Leia into the chosen one, that's not good. That's something I have a very big problem with. The reason I do is because there's a whole featurette with George Lucas and Hayden Christensen that details Anakin as the chosen one in vivid detail, and why don't get me wrong, it absolutely makes sense with Anakin. I'm not against that. I'm actually very, very happy with that. I love the story of Anakin being the chosen one, and the way the featurette explains it makes a lot of sense.
You gotta remember, this is one movie, and it's meant to be seen 1 through 6. I think when you watch the actual movie in order, the story will become very clear that Anakin is the chosen one.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force.
And even when Anakin turns into Darth Vader, he is still the chosen one. The prophecy is that Anakin will bring balance to the Force and destroy the Sith.
Now, on the other hand, if you make Leia the chosen one, then that essentially nullifies Darth Vader, and it just throws all of the instances in the prequels where convenience is essentially governed by prophecy. It's going to throw that all out of whack. It's going to fly in the face of a lot of things. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for Leia becoming the Supreme Chancellor by the end, and she's the new leader of the Republic. I'd imagine she would be. But to sort of change the prophecy plotline of the story, of the overarching saga, I got a huge problem with that. It's odd that George, at least in this statement here, didn't talk about the wills at all. He didn't talk about the microbiology intricacies of the Force that he planned to go into. Maybe that storyline is more with Luke than Leia, because I think this is Leia's part of the story. Leia's trying to bring order to the Republic. Leia's trying to put the government back into a working manner. And then you have Darth Maul, a resurrected Darth Maul, it says, essentially rise to become the godfather of crime with his own apprentice, who apparently is very, very powerful. And so you have another master-apprentice dynamic like you had with, the Emperor and Vader, or, Sidious and Maul in the first place. And if Lucas was trying to echo that's cool. I like that. Ultimately, there's the Sith and the rule of two, so it doesn't break anything. It's interesting. I think it's also kind of a mistake, because bringing Darth Maul back is going to confuse a lot of people who didn't watch the Clone Wars, obviously. I haven't watched far enough into the Clone Wars to when Darth Maul actually shows up. Not to mention, you have the... I know there was a few comic books as well where he came back in the Lucas EU, so there is that. Bringing Darth Maul back as the main villain, I mean, you'd have to introduce him as quickly as possible, because people are going to be like, okay, it's Darth Maul, he died way back when, and now he's just popped up and we're supposed to take this seriously. Like, you'd have to go into vivid detail how he survived and everything, and you'd have to do a lot of groundwork to make more work. I personally think he should never have been brought back. I haven't seen what they do with him in the Clone Wars yet. I never thought of him as that type of character, the really deep, kind of flushed out, multi-dimensional villain. I'm not saying he can't be, but it would take a lot of good writing to sort of make that work and make it work with the first film, because, I mean, you can frame it any way you want. Retcons aren't good things in writing, but I think that if you retcon something, if depending on the severity of how big the retcon is, you can bring some quality out of it. If it leads to something good, then, I mean, you should always make note of the blemish, the error, but you should also be fair to assess the quality it brings, or the lack of quality. That's still, yet to be seen. Darth Talon, I found very curious. I would have liked to have seen Luke throw down with her, or maybe Luke's apprentice throw down with her. You could have Luke take up for Obi-Wan, who failed to get the job done with Maul. I like how that could have panned out. It's funny how Han isn't mentioned. In all of Lucas's time mentioning the sequel trilogy, he's never mentioned Han Solo, as far as I know, which is odd. But aside from the Maul retcon and Leia being the chosen one, this feels like the natural progression of events. The Empire fell, the New Republic has to be formed, and there is a bunch of rogue entities trying to take advantage of a now disbanded Empire, and there's plenty of opportunity to be had in terms of, crime exploitation, factions, all throughout the galaxy until the Republic gains a strong foothold and control, and that's what Leia's focusing on trying to do. So I'm very intrigued by this story. I think it sounds like an excellent story to be told. I'm very curious about the Jedi side of things, just as I'm as equally curious about the political side of things and the underworld side of things, because George Lucas has mentioned the underworld of Star Wars numerous times, that it exists, and if it was going to go deeper into that, then sign me up. But again, I think the trilogy could have done without the Maul retcon. And people are going to say, oh, but it's not a retcon because he was in the Clone Wars. Still, I think in that case, the trilogy, unless it does a lot of work, it's relying too heavily on external canon, and I don't think it would have been... I think it would have been damaging to the trilogy. Perhaps, because I'm a big fan of the Dathomir plotline in the Clone Wars, maybe they could talk about a Sith Lord who rose from Dathomir, maybe Darth Maul's brother or something, Darth Maul's father. I suppose re-establishing Maul would be less work than establishing a new villain. I'm really kind of conflicted, to be perfectly honest. It's just, obviously you don't ever want a retcon, ever. But he is a popular character, so I don't know. I think Lucas could have made it work. I just don't think it was a wise move to bring back Darth Maul if he was going to, as like the main villain. I could maybe see him as the godfather of crime, as Lucas wanted to portray him. Which brings me to Solo, because isn't this all just so suspicious? Because if you watch Solo, a Star Wars story, it ends with Kira, Han Solo's quote-unquote girlfriend, which let's just pretend she never existed. She begins to work with Darth Maul, who makes his reveal, so that he is still, alive in Star Wars Rebels canon, and he survived the Clone Wars, obviously that means, and he's back, and what do you know, he's running a crime syndicate. So, I'm just wondering, is that where Disney got the idea of bringing Darth Maul back and chucking him into making him a crime lord from? Because George Lucas gave Bob Iger, gave Kathleen Kennedy the sequel trilogy outline that he wanted, that they could go off, and this would have undoubtedly been on there. And they would have been like, yeah, sure, thanks a lot, George, thrown it out, and then they're like, oh, wait, we need to bring in Darth Maul somehow. Okay, we'll stick him into Solo, a Star Wars story. What should we do? Oh, George wanted to make him a crime lord? Okay, we'll just stick that into Solo, and hopefully they'll shill out tickets for a Darth Maul series, or, a Darth Maul crime syndicate game, or Solo 2, or whatever. So, it kind of throws Solo into a new light, because Solo did the whole Darth Maul crime lord thing, and I thought it was pretty ridiculous, but then again, it lacked the context of the Clone Wars and stuff, and that's what I mean, that's the point. A lot of people would think bringing Darth Maul back is ridiculous, because, like myself, I haven't watched the Clone Wars in full as of yet. I haven't watched Star Wars Rebels as of yet. The films should reference external source material, or leave things open to further depth in external source material, but it shouldn't rely on external source material ever. That's why every time I assess the prequels, I always discount the Clone Wars entirely. They don't exist to me when I'm weighing up the pros and cons of the prequels. Same with the original trilogy. None of the EU crap, none of that Boba Fett surviving the Sarlacc pit or whatever the hell was in the EU. None of that helps the films in my eyes. It's important to separate canon. Though I'm happy to, say that the Clone Wars adds to the canon, helps the canon somewhat in certain instances, but as movies, they need to stand alone as movies, because they're referencing only the movies in themselves as part of that mainline saga. People would be walking into Star Wars Episode 7 having watched only Star Wars Episodes 1 to 6, so Episode 7 needs to treat it as such. Because Maul shows up in the Clone Wars would have had to have been accounted for in the next trilogy if you're going to bring Maul back. If the Clone Wars didn't exist, maybe they could have also done it. They just have to, again, work hard with the writing to make it all make sense, but good luck with that. Ultimately, I found the trilogy's ideas to be intriguing. Again, just to conclude, I think it would have been a decent trilogy. I don't think it would have been better than the prequels. I don't think it would have been better than the OT. Like I said, I was curious, but, there's also a chance it could have been very derivative of the OT, or derivative of the prequels for that matter, or maybe it could have been a good hybrid of both. Because the prequels was very heavily politically based in a thriving republic, and the OT was where essentially politics didn't exist. I mean, they existed, you just didn't really get to see them because it was more about the Empire doing whatever they wanted and the rebels fighting for their lives and outlaws in space. I would have liked to have seen the story of the formulating of the new government, making peace treaties with planets, getting the crime syndicates under control, the rise of new factions, things like that. That would have been cool. Who knows? It's fun to speculate, but look, I ultimately would have just had two major problems with how the trilogy sounds, and that's just the retcon of Maul and Leia being the Chosen One, and recontextualizing the whole overarching prophecy of the Chosen One with Anakin, because for example, we talk about retcons. Bringing back Maul is a small retcon because it doesn't really affect much. Recontextualizing the Chosen One prophecy is a massive retcon because it affects everything, and that's the difference. I think the Maul one can be somewhat forgivable if it's reasonably well executed. The Leia one, though, I'm glad we didn't get to see Leia become the chosen one, because again, I think that would have screwed with a lot that was already established. But if he did manage to release it in an alternate universe, I'd still pay money to watch it, because damn it, I'm a fan and I want to see what happens, and it cannot be worse than what we got with Disney. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this little rant and my assessment of what George Lucas planned with his original sequel trilogy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed my take on the subject. I'm sorry, a lot of you probably thought I was going to send glowing praise. I'm not. I try to be fair with the Lucas portion of Star Wars as well, including his ideas that didn't come to fruition. So, let me know if you had the same problems I did with how this sounded, and maybe how Lucas could have fixed some of these issues I had, and issues you had too. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have a bit of time, consider staying for the outro. Firstly, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all of my patrons and YouTube members for all of your contributions and support for the channel. You guys are awesome. I very much appreciate what you do. And if you'd like to become a YouTube member, you can click the join button below, or if you'd like to become a patron of the channel and support my videos, there's a link to Patreon in the description below. Secondly, don't forget to check out the channel's Discord server. What Discord basically is an online community where followers of this channel go to congregate and talk about a range of different topics, ranging from Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, so on and so forth. We got almost 1,000 members in there now, and it's a lively bunch. Awesome individuals in there. Check it out at your leisure, and who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. Lastly, I have 2 other channels you might be interested in. The first one is called NOMZ, which is the secondary channel, and it talks almost exclusively about video games, and it includes streams, reviews, and commentaries. So check it out if you're interested in that. And the second one is essentially the tertiary channel, which is the AI Core channel. On that channel, you'll essentially see every episode of the podcast, old and new, archived there for subsequent viewings. So if you're a fan of the channel's podcast, head over there and subscribe, because you won't want to miss out. And yeah, guys, thanks very much for staying to the end of the video. You are a legend, and I'll see you next time.